Well, it is our last show of 2023 and our somewhat unofficial Christmas special. So, welcome to Culturally Appropriate. I'm your host, Jerod Hollyfield. Can you believe that we've already been doing this show for 5 months, which just seems insane to me? What I wanted to do for our final show of the year was celebrate with friends because Christmas is a time for family and friends, obviously. So, we've brought back two of our most popular guests and friends of the show, and in some cases, employees of the show. But today, Jay Curtis Miller, local Nashville filmmaker, and I are going to discuss the new Nicolas Cage movie Dream Scenario by up and coming director Christopher Borgli. Next, our friends Lucas and Geneva, Geneva being the producer and all around runner of this show and co-writer of our theme song, which you just heard, is going to be talking about the Super Sick Investigations Christmas special. And you might remember back in September, we had Geneva and Lucas on as well to talk about this really nice YouTube series podcast that they've been creating for a couple of years. And as always, we will end with a doozy of a film rundown because, as many of you know, as some of you might not know, the last week of the year is always kind of off for films because there's so many released. We have movies coming out on Friday, and then we have movies coming out on Christmas Day, Monday, and then nothing really for about 2 weeks because of the fact that Hollywood's kind of spent for the year. So we've got a lot of movies to cover in the rundown, but because of that, let's go ahead and get started. So I'd like to bring on Jay to talk about this wonderful movie that both of us saw that I think kind of blew us away. So Jay, how are you doing? Are you traveling for the holidays?
Yeah, I'm back home in Cincinnati. So, how are you doing?
I am doing just fine, just wrapping up everything for the show today. So I wanted to have you on because I know we've had some conversations about this new Nicolas Cage movie, Dream Scenario, that A24 released. And it came out, I think, the first week of December, kind of in that post-Thanksgiving lull. And Nicolas Cage got nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical for this movie. I don't really know how it's going to play out for the end of the year, but I do feel like this is a movie people are going to be talking about for years to come in the same
hmm
way as movies like Hereditary or Midsommar. So, Jay, what are your thoughts about Dream Scenario?
Um, it's probably my favorite movie of the year so far. There's a few I haven't seen, but it's top contender to be number one for sure. I don't know really where to start. Like, normally I don't like quirky, like overly abstract movies like this, but I think Christopher Borgli does a really good job of just kind of making the entire world of this kind of um, dream scenario, pun intended, if you will, just feel really lived in and real. Um, I think the direction and the satire is pretty spot on, and it's really hard for like an American movie to effectively satirize 2023 American culture. Not just on the neoliberal side, which I think it's fairly scathing, even more scathing than the right, but it also does kind of poke fun at like the kind of vultures that the right um, tends to be in this kind of day and age. Every time someone gets canceled, there's always a slew of podcasts and interviews, as referenced in the movie. Really funnily so, like I shocked that they even brought their names up, but like Tucker Carlson, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, like it effectively just takes both sides of this kind of elite class of politics and just kind of points the mirror back at them. I know I kind of rambled for a bit, but like there's so much to talk about this movie that it's hard to just like say in a concise way.
Yeah, and so for those of you who haven't seen the movie, and it's done pretty well, Nicolas Cage plays kind of a mediocre college professor. He's not someone with a lot of publications. He's not someone who's at an Ivy League school. He's kind of at an Anytown, USA, Middle American college, and he's a zoology professor. And suddenly and inexplicably, he starts showing up in people's dreams. And he doesn't do anything. In a lot of these dreams, they're kind of dangerous situations like the earthquake you saw earlier, or people just rising from the ground and dropping. And people see Nicolas Cage just kind of walking through the dream, not doing anything. And that makes him sort of an internet celebrity for a while. And then suddenly, Nicolas Cage starts doing stuff in people's dreams. And even though he himself is not doing anything, people start to turn on him in real life. He ends up becoming canceled, for lack of a better word. And this allows the director, Christopher Borgley, to sort of poke fun at the way a lot of institutions are currently handling things. I don't know that Borgley knew, and clearly I know that Borgley didn't know that the Harvard plagiarism scandal was going to be coming up in the aftermath of this. So this idea of academic politics was going to be kind of front and center in the news. But the movie really was released at a perfect time for that. And I know, Jay, we've had this conversation before, and I wrote an article about it back in June called There Is No Culture War, but I get really sick of movies from both sides of the aisle that are just polemical, that are just there to hammer home a political point to somebody else. And
Yeah.
they're so convinced that they are right. And they're so convinced that no one else is saying what they're saying. And they're just so desperate to get audience members involved that they end up saying nothing, that they end up just being horrible versions of art that don't do anything whatsoever. They don't advance the cause. They don't advance the medium. They just might as well have not been made for, think about things. Why do you feel that we're sort of in this world where a movie like Dream Scenario is so refreshing because of the fact that it's about politics, but it's not overtly taking a stance?
Well, just as you said, from both sides of the aisle, these writers, directors, studios are convinced that they're right. I don't think Christopher Borgley is convinced that he's 100% right. And that's what great art is. It's about, here's what I'm thinking, here's what's in my brain. I'm going to put this on paper. I'm going to make this into a movie. And I'm just going to experiment with this kind of material and just like let it out there, and then you can decide of what I'm trying to say. And that's what I think like some of the best filmmakers do, like David Lynch. Like there's so many different ways you can interpret his movies, and I think there's a lot you can interpret from this movie, and especially how it kind of ends. And that's why, like, because everyone else is convinced on um, either like the right or the left in their art that they are 100% right, and there's never like room for like question or like uh, I don't know, like intrigue. Like there's no room to ponder on what is said in this, and I think there's just a lot to kind of dig from it, which I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah, and I, in preparing for the show, and I, wrote this review a couple of days ago. I had I don't want to say misfortune because I had kind of a good time, but I decided to go on a whim to see Aquaman 2 yesterday.
Okay.
And spoiler alert, it ends with this horrible scene of Aquaman addressing the UN about climate change. Like, I'm not joking.
Oh, okay.
There's a reason I think these movies aren't doing particularly well anymore. It's just so ham-fisted, so heavy-handed, so just unabashedly stupid.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering sort of about some of the worst instances you've seen from the right or the left of this kind of filmmaking, whether it's a blockbuster movie or an indie.
Well, I mean, like, I can probably think of two off the top of my head, and as far as like when it comes to movies on the right, um, we've kind of talked about Lady Ballers, but that to me didn't work at all. Mainly because it wasn't funny. There was not a single funny moment in that movie. And it ruined its sort of messaging. Like I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I can go on for a long time about why that movie didn't work, but that like their messaging didn't work because they weren't funny or talented enough to satirize the current culture climate that this movie does so well. And then I guess for the left, and I don't really seek modern movies that are clearly like designed to divide or be divisive and have like a list of agenda points to cover in their movies. But I guess the closest thing would probably be Indiana Jones 5, in the way that it just sort of um, it doesn't deconstruct a character, it demonizes its character. There's not like there's not a single thing that is paid with homage or any sort of like grandiose imagery or something to like anything to like bring up Indiana Jones. Everything in that movie is done it to tear him down. and it's mainly through this kind of like neoliberal side character played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So that's like two examples. That's probably what I can say the most in
Yeah.
recent memory.
And we've talked about on the show before how Phoebe Waller-Bridge is kind of indicative of really how clueless Hollywood is, because she's now responsible for the death, or at least the the critical condition, of three major franchises at this point.
Yeah.
Bond, Star Wars, and now Indiana Jones. All of which are
Yeah.
sort of trying to figure out how to move on, and all of which hired her. Which I liked her show Fleabag just fine, but there is this like sense of messaging in a movie like Dial of Destiny. And I mean, I think we talked about this on the show earlier, but audiences just don't really want to see that sort of thing right now.
Right.
And if they want to see it, they want to see it in that very nuanced way that something like Oppenheimer or Barbie does. And
Yeah.
Dream Scenario is probably the only movie this year that's actually addressing this issue while not participating in it. Like, it's actually more about this issue than guilty of engaging with it in the way that it handles its satire. And it's not
Yeah.
absurd satire either. I mean, it has a lot of moments of just like surrealism. Like, this is a movie that really owes Spike Jonze a great debt because of some of the
Oh, for
surreal
sure.
and Michel Gondry. But in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, it has this sort of bite to it that a lot of their movies don't. Because I mean, in a lot of ways, Eve Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry, their movies are very gentle.
Hmm.
Their movies sort of go back to common humanity, and Borgley almost seems to be mourning that in this particular film. So, what were some of the best scenes for you? Just some of the scenes that really made this the best movie of the year for you.
Well, I mean, probably the not sex scene that doesn't
Okay.
happen. That was the funniest, probably the loudest I've laughed in a movie theater this entire year, especially with everyone else around me. Um, it's just so awkward and so like painfully cringe on both sides of like the relationship there, and that contrast. It was out of left field, and it was like it went in places I wasn't expecting to. So, but overall, that like I can't think of like a particular scene. Obviously, like the scenes with Michael, Sarah, with the advertising company called Thoughts. Like it felt very like Silicon Valley, big tech kind of like millennial meetings, and it's funny how that he uses that as like um these two polarizing ideologies. It starts off with that kind of like, we're going to book you an interview with Obama, and then, well, we can't get that, but how about Jordan Peterson next week? It's so funny how like they'll just flip anytime there's like a chance to make money. And then there's just scenes with can't remember his name, but he's the guy that interacts with Nicolas Cage's wife. And that's like kind of like a similar parallel scene to the scenes with Michael, Sarah, where it's like they're kind of like preemptively getting ready to let you know that she's being canceled. And I don't know, it's just there's a lot of just great like little scenes. And but overall, I felt like really taken away by the atmosphere. I love that it was filmed during the fall of last year. It looks gorgeous. I think it was shot on 16 millimeter, if I'm not mistaken. But I think shooting it on film like that in today's age, and taking this concept that is so, you know, just kind of like, I guess like abstract and surreal, and really playing with surrealism, but like grounding that in just like this white collar like look and aesthetic to it. It really sells all the dream sequences even more. And it's not like they're um elaborate dream sequences. They're kind of very normal and realistic that you and I might have. Just why am I on this bed and there's alligators on the ground? Like, I don't know why, but it kind of feels real. Um, I don't know. There's just like a lot of good moments like that in the movie.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think is really what elevates the movie from being smart to like absolutely brilliant, and it's the idea of thoughts, and how funny that the joke itself is that this firm is called Thoughts with a question mark. And
Mm-hmm.
that made me laugh. But then, whenever we go in and he's like, we want to pitch you Sprite in your dreams.
Yeah.
And then he equates Sprite with getting the Obamas involved.
Yeah.
So we have this idea of like, the corporation is this woke apparatus, but Borgley's very cynical about that idea, about this corporate altruism, because, these are, kind of the overly educated millennial generation, the Ivy League. And
Yeah.
the money's really the main concern, because when he pivots and everybody starts getting canceled and he goes to saying like, let's get you booked on Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, they also
Yeah.
see that as a way to make money. So we have a lot of this fake, like, corporate culture doesn't want us to see this. If you think back to
Mm-hmm.
like The Sound of Freedom, and what we see is, Hollywood is raking in the money here.
Yeah.
All of these big corporations, all of this sort of, for lack of a better word, elite, or wannabe elites like Michael Cera in this movie. It's still about the money, but right now in our world, social capital is financial capital. And there's
Yeah.
not been a lot of movies to really dig into that. And I really want to credit Borgley for doing that in such a hilarious way. Like, it's not heavy handed. Just seeing Michael Cera as, if you want to think about him as the grown up kid from Superbad that's doing this,
Yeah.
and seeing him sort of having his soul sold already, and Paul Matthews, played by Nicolas Cage, very, clearly being uncomfortable, right? Trying to have this moment of integrity about selling this book he's always wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scene that just really works well and gets at the heart of the movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
There are so many strands of the movie, so many things that it's dealing with. One of the other major ones is, it would have been very easy, I think, for Borgley to make a movie about how, people like Kylie Jenner are famous for being famous, that kind of idea of this new generation of TikTok stars, which the movie does a great job with in the conclusion, which we're not going
Oh
to
yeah.
ruin here.
That
That
reminded me a lot of her though.
Yeah,
That final scene. I think that this movie could pair very well with her in different ways, but it's the same sort of dream logic. But sorry to cut you off.
no, yeah, and there was actually a really interesting move or article this week about how prophetic was the movie Her 10 years later, because we're coming up
Yeah.
on the 10th anniversary of that movie. Be really, really nice if Spike Jonze would direct something else in the near future. I love seeing
I
new work from
know.
him. But at least we've got, Borgley there as kind of the heir apparent to Spike Jonze. But,
Hmm.
rather than have somebody just be this random, untalented person, this TikTok generation, or this, Nicolas Cage's character is a very smart person. His general flaw to me in the movie seems to be that he has had to succeed in academia by kind of keeping his head down. And he's kind of a shell of a man, to the point that whenever someone who is overtly plagiarizing his work is getting famous from the stuff that he did in grad school, he can't even confront her.
Yeah.
Um, so he's getting famous essentially for something that is completely unrelated to something that he probably should be famous for, which is an extra
Hmm.
sense of irony that we have in the movie. I wanted to talk a little bit about Nicolas Cage. So, like, it's interesting to think about Nicolas Cage, growing up on these 90s movies when he was a $20 million A-list movie star, to kind of seeing his career crater a little bit there. How
Yeah.
do you feel about Nicolas Cage, and like how important was Nicolas Cage to your childhood and your formative years of being educated in film history?
I mean, I've always been a huge fan of him. I guess like the first time I've ever been kind of truly captivated by him, and it's funny um, that I'm saying this, but it's probably Con Air because um, I remember one weekend like my dad said like you're watching Rocky too much, or it was either Rocky or Cliffhanger because those movies were on repeat, and I'm a huge Stallone fan, so I was just watching those action movies over and over again. So he's like, "Here's some real action movies," and he put Die Hard in there. But Con Air was the one that kind of like um, Die Hard's the better movie, but Con Air was the one that was so ridiculous with Nicolas Cage and his long hair. It's so like unabashedly stupid, and it's so funny. John Malkovich as the villain is one of the best action hero villains of all time. So like I grew up liking him at an early age, and obviously I grew up with the National Treasure movies and in school those came out during Thanksgiving, and those were like the perfect kind of like Thanksgiving weekend trip to the movies. So like he's always just been like just a, one of the best character like leading actors in like the past like 30 years. And obviously he's had kind of like he had a really bad downfall, like probably starting with like movies like Next that or like some there's a movie Bangkok I can't remember what it's called, but it
Bangkok
was like
Dangerous.
yeah, it was just like these he'd just picked these terrible generic action movies and he wasn't really using his like acting persona to the he was just always really stripped down and bland. So like over those years, like when he was not doing much, I just kind of wrote him off as like I guess he's just kind of like uh, doing anything he can now to make money. But then like throughout like the 2010s, you would just see him like in just a slew of just horrible like red box movies. But then there would be a movie like Joe, which I think it's called Joe. Yeah, with David Gordon Green. And that kind of like it was those like little intimate movies like that that kind of like reminded you like, oh, um, he really can act. And then when I saw Mandy 5 years ago at the Belcourt, I think I didn't see it at midnight, but saw it like at a late night screening and it was packed. And that like set me off like, oh, okay, he's kind of coming back and like this is like true to form like Nicolas Cage. So he's always just been like he's never been a meme to me. And I think like that's what is kind of like the weird discourse about him these days. And to a certain extent this movie because you can easily see like oh it's Nicolas Cage in your dreams, like that's the gimmick of this movie, but obviously it's much more than that and he's perfect for this role. And he's always doing something different in each of his roles. Like he has a weird kind of nasally high pitched voice in this that you wouldn't expect. And he does this thing with his like head that's so funny, uh, especially when he's nervous or like talking to people that he doesn't want to be around in dream scenario. But that's like kind of I guess like the double-edged sword of like Nicolas Cage and being kind of like a meme, especially with Gen Z audiences these days, is you have to kind of like weed those people out a little bit and just like no, he's a great actor and there's like a reason why he's like in so many great movies.
Yeah, and that's something I always really appreciate about movies is the bait and switch. So like I'm thinking about the Seth Rogen movie Observe and Report. I don't know if you've seen it,
Mhm.
but
I've
you know
heard of it. I haven't seen it.
it's written and directed by one of David Gordon Green's collaborators, Jody Hill, and it came out a couple of months after Paul Blart Mall Cop. So
Yeah,
it looks just like a stupid Seth Rogen movie, but it's this really intensely just bleak comedy about kind of the middle America and flyover country, and
yeah,
audiences go to see like Seth Rogen crack wise, and then they come out with this like very kind of poison pill about middle American life that's not
sure.
looking down on middle American life, but is really getting to some harsh truths. And I feel like this movie does kind of the same thing. And Borgley's a very media savvy filmmaker. I mean, his shorts are available on Vimeo. He's got an amazing one with David Shields, author of Reality Hunger, and Bret Easton Ellis, author of American Psycho, where he's sort of playing himself as this confused millennial. But this is a movie like a bunch of hipster A24 kids might go see because hey, it's Nicolas Cage, it's that guy that's funny,
Yeah,
and they sort of kind of go into this movie and they get this very nuanced critique of the world that they grew up in. I mean, even down to the point where we have that amazing scene of all of the college students who are too scared to go to class because they see Nicolas Cage in their
yeah.
dreams. They
That's
have
so
to go
good.
through like a group therapy session. So I mean, I really appreciate that about Borgley. He's a very savvy filmmaker. Did you get a chance to
Hmm.
see his previous film, Sick of Myself?
I haven't. It's definitely on my list for Christmas break watching.
Yeah.
Um, I'm excited to see it. I've heard that that movie is even more like scathing as far
Yeah.
as like its satire goes.
Yeah. And I mean, that one's set in Norway, but it's probably one of the best movies about millennials that's ever come out.
Hmm.
And, you could
Well,
watch that movie and be like, yeah, well, he did this.
I was reading up about it, and he said he probably could not have made that movie as it is without having have lived in LA and having LA friends when writing Sick of Myself. he's like, he could do it in Norway, but the fact that he had like a lot of upbringing or he had a stint in LA where he lived. He probably still lives there now. Um, it's just that LA millennial culture really like kind of bled into that script, which was funny and
Yeah, because I
interesting.
think from what I read, he went back to Norway during COVID just because, you know, LA was basically under lockdown for years longer than everybody else, and
Yeah.
that's what came out of it. So I mean, I guess it's one of the good things that came out of the pandemic. But in a lot of ways, you
Hmm.
know, Dream Scenario it's a very different movie. For, you know, for Nicolas Cage and for Christopher Borgli, even though it is kind of the natural evolution of some of the stuff that he's done in his shorts and in Sick of Myself. So yeah, I mean, and I also feel like this is kind of the movie that really does lead Nicolas Cage to have that gravitas again, because he's still kind of in this position where I think he likes to work and takes everything, but he's also not very
Yeah.
serious. Like, he doesn't take himself too seriously. Because you talked about Joe in 2014. He made a movie with Paul Schrader called Dog Eat Dog, which is not
Yeah.
one of Paul Schrader's best movies, but is still a really intense and, you know, very successful movie in its own right.
Hmm.
And Mandy really kind of put him back on the beat. But then, you know, we've seen him in stuff like Pig, which I picked as my
Yeah.
best film of 2021 for the Pamphleteer. But, you know, even right before Dream Scenario, I saw The Retirement Plan, which was kind of this like basic action movie with Ashley Greene, and it's, you know, Nicolas Cage playing a retired CIA agent. So it's kind of like nudge nudge wink wink, but it's still more
Sure.
like the direct to video realm of Nicolas Cage movies as opposed to Dream Scenario.
Yeah.
Um, but I totally agree with you about like this is really a role in a movie that only Nicolas Cage could have played. Like the movie is better and exercises its themes more effectively because Nicolas Cage is the star as opposed to someone else.
Yeah.
Which I think works really well. But yeah, so I mean, anything else about the movie that really struck you? Because I know that you said that an American couldn't make this movie. So why do you think that American director couldn't have made Dream Scenario?
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. It's so many American millennial filmmakers these days are taking themselves way too seriously, and they are 100% uh, convinced that they're right about whatever their ideas or their themes are of their script, and like it's probably better suited that someone from Norway like Borgli can just like kind of look at our culture through like a microcosm, like kind of just like looking at it and just like picking at it, observing it, and he can kind of create this kind of satirical movie. And it's hard for like I don't know, I guess like we used to be good at it. I don't know if we are anymore, but we used to be good at making fun of ourselves in in these movies and just kind of like holding the mirror up to ourselves. But we're just so like I don't know, like entitled about all of our opinions and our way of thinking and our way and our like our social status and all that sort of stuff. And he doesn't seem concerned about that. And I think like, and it's a trend that's growing in like past few years, especially like after the pandemic. Like Triangle of Sadness, Tar, this like there's just so many movies that are not made by not written and not made by American filmmakers that are just so just like eviscerating our current kind of discourse and climate. So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm really it's exciting though. It's like I'm curious as to like what will come out next year, you know, and other years to come. I would love to see someone like Quentin Tarantino, like, and he does it in his own way. He kind of like poked fun at millennials a little bit and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it felt like. But I'd love to see more filmmakers just kind of like be bold and brave and just kind of like I don't know, just make fun of just Gen Z and millennial culture for a second, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other favorite scenes that I've seen in a movie recently is the scene in Tar where she's at Juilliard and she's just going after the student who won't listen to Bach. I mean, Tar was my
Oh
favorite
yeah,
movie of last year, hands down. It was a film that, you know, I saw in theaters multiple times. I could watch that
yeah,
movie every day. And Dream Scenario, I feel like is very close to that as well. I mean, it's a movie I'm very happy to see is finding an audience, and it's a movie that I'm
Mhm.
very happy to see that A24 took a chance on, because it definitely deserves wider recognition, and I'm hoping it will get that over the holiday season.
Mhm.
It's still hanging on there in a few theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add about Dream Scenario, or even plans you've got for the new year for your own filmmaking?
The last thing I'll say about Dream Scenario, it's got my favorite Talking Head song at the end credits. So, if that's enough for you to see it, then go see it. Other plans, I don't know. I'm there's a lot that's coming out, as you mentioned, like at the beginning of the show. But I'm really curious to see the Iron Claw. Like, I think I can convince some of my family members to see that. That looks like something that I can kind of bridge, like the art and then like kind of mainstream, and have my brother or like my dad go see that. I One movie that I've seen already, but is definitely worth checking out this holiday season is Godzilla minus one, and that's just again the kind of similar to Dream Scenario, made completely out of the Hollywood system for less than $15 million, and still was able to like make movies like The Flash, Indiana Jones 5, The Marvels, Aquaman 2 probably, just like completely leave them in the dust. So if you want like good big blockbuster filmmaking, I think uh, Godzilla minus one is definitely worth checking out in the theater. So
What about your own work? You got any big plans for next year?
I have a short that I'd like to do next summer. Um, that'll be kind of a tricky one, but at least I'd have at least two scripts I'm hoping to direct in short form next year. But I'm mainly just gonna be focusing on feature length scripts and trying to get my first feature done in the next few years. So we'll see. You know how
Awesome.
the struggle is. It's like you kind of say that every year. It's going to be this year, and then like that, it all fell through. Then you just try again. But that's where I'm heading. So a little bit less towards short film content and just feature films. So
Well, I am sure we'll be having you back on the show in the new year. So, Jay, have a Merry Christmas, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
Bye. All right, next we're going to hear from Lucas and Geneva. This is like Geneva's second appearance in a row in front of the camera while producing the show. So, hopefully, we'll try to keep this easy and free of anxiety for her. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
So back in September, you
Wow.
told us you were in the writing process of the Super Sick Investigations Christmas special, and that dropped earlier this week. So, we talked about it before its existence. Now it's in existence. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about the process?
Oh gosh. I love making this show. I mean, it's just obviously like doing all the audio stuff and the post stuff can get it can become a lot. It can become hours and hours and hours of work, but writing the music, um acting in it with Lucas, I mean, it's just a blast. I'm making something that makes my best friend and I laugh with my best friend. So like, what do you want? you know?
Yeah. I'm just I don't know. These days I'm just feeling very grateful about it. I'm not the kind of, even, when it comes to like music and stuff that I've done in the past, or videos, whatever, I'm not always a self-starter on these kind of things, and being able to work with Geneva on it and sort of the contagious excitement sort of pushed me through it. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's very admirable. I'm very grateful to have a partner that does that.
oh.
And yeah, you all
Ah,
were
Thank you.
made you bashful.
I'm really
you all
happy
were
with
just
how it came
starting
out too.
whenever we talked. So, what was the writing process like?
Our writing process is usually like we do an outline first. And with this one, I guess spoiler, but the theme is that we go to a Christmas dungeon where we have to endure various trials.
Hmm.
And the real trick with this one, and what I think took the longest in the outlining process, was just figuring out what each of these trials would be and how they would relate to some kind of like Christmas virtue, but still be fun and silly and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then after that we just kind of we sat down. We actually had two people who wrote this with us this time. We had Bo Berto, who plays the role of Brinstle in this episode, and then we had he's one of my oldest friends, and then possibly my oldest friend, Vlam, has we found out after that he has a master's degree in poetry, um, which was funny because as we're writing the script, we're just shooting through it like, oh, this would be funny, this is the next line, and he's like going back and adjusting the meter of all the lines for the Christmas Goblin.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of a. I've always found like secular Christmas specials, but they're a holiday special, and it's like making it about Christmas, but without making it about Christmas. I wanted to have one that was explicitly Christmas, but and yet pay respect to the source material, if you know what I mean, but also completely sidestep. Like, it always comes down to like the true meaning of Christmas. I don't know. I wanted to take a more subtle approach. Well, kind of, I don't know. I guess it sort of lampoons like the secular ones a bit, right?
I think really a little bit. I mean, there's nothing explicitly like, there's no like Charlie Brown scene about the manger. There's nothing like that in this Christmas special. There is and I love the Charlie Brown Christmas, and I watch it every Christmas. But this is very much like we wanted to create our own Christmas mythology. While still it is explicitly a Christmas special.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite Christmas specials? Or, I mean, Lucas, in your case, it sounds like you've got an axe to grind with some of them.
Oh, I mean, not necessarily. I'm just thinking about like, it's hard to come up with a specific example. I guess I'm just, I don't know, just like a one-off, and I don't even know if I can remember exactly what happened, like one-off things with Billy and Mandy, or one of the like cartoons from that era where it's just like a real quick one, and it's just sort of, there's jingling bells and there's all kinds of like visual clues that it's that time of year and it's getting really festive, but not actually talking about it. I don't know. I thought it would be nice if that took place in a new setting. I don't know. I'll tell you one that I really, really like that I think everybody should watch is ADBC. Made by, I think it was like Matt Berry, if you know that British comedian, Matt Berry. I think it was sort of his baby, along with a few of the other people that
Richard
are,
Ayoade.
Yeah, like a lot of the Mighty Boosh cast too. But it's about a story about the innkeeper, the innkeeper who owned the inn where Jesus Christ got to be born in a manger, and it's about the trials and tribulations he had with and the struggles he faced against the rival innkeeper Tony Iscariot. It's a really gorgeous, almost secular Christmas special, and it's really fun. I think it's free on YouTube right now.
And it is free on YouTube, and it's a rock opera.
It's Jesus Christ Superstar.
It's Jesus Christ Superstar parody.
It's
so
I think you would like it.
Oh, I love it.
It's very like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place kind of thing. It's like very like a fake period. Like they use cameras from the 70s and stuff. It looks really good.
It's
really oh god, you're speaking my language totally. I actually just saw Jesus Christ Superstar for the first time this year.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have to watch ADBC now.
It blew me away. So yeah, I've got to watch this. And I actually saw Garth Marenghi's Dark Place for the first time this year as well. So
okay, wow. It's the perfect time.
Yeah,
there's never been a better time.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that tonight. Actually, after my wife, I've got your special programmed for my wife to listen to as we drive to get our last Christmas gifts this afternoon. So, I think she's going to enjoy it. And she was like, this sounds sort of like your theme song a little bit. And I'm like, gee, I wonder why. So, why don't you take us? Some viewers might not have seen the original show you all were on back in September. So, could you give us a little bit of an overview of the premise of Super Sick Investigations and also the premise of this particular holiday special?
Yeah. Super Sick Investigations is a cartoon for your ears, audio play series, in which stupid versions of Lucas and myself encounter different fantastical situations, conspiracy theories, cryptids, and sort of fumble our ways through them with grace.
And a little bit of good luck and the power of friendship.
A lot of good luck and the power of friendship.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we there's an episode we go inside the internet. There's an episode we're confronted with ancient aliens. There's an episode that's very much like a Lovecraft parody. We go to the basement of the White House at one point.
We face off against the Smithsonian secret police who are trying to hurt our giant friend and take him away from us because he's not allowed to exist.
That's my favorite episode, actually.
Thank you, man.
And so what was the second part of that question? What was the premise of the Christmas episode?
The Christmas special in particular. You told us a little bit about it, but how do you end up in the dungeon? How do we get there? How do we get to your Christmas song? All of those things that our viewers might want to know.
Yeah, so when it starts out, we're complaining about all of the mundane stuff about Christmas, you know, like shoveling and driving around and not wanting to disappoint anybody and running the Christmas marathon, basically.
Yeah.
And the Christmas goblin, pictured here, drawn by moms of Scum Tapes, who you interviewed as well.
Yeah, it was on our Halloween special, so
yeah.
Nice.
Crashes into our house and says that we've forgotten the true meaning of Christmas. So he sends us to his Christmas dungeon, where we have to learn in his own sadistic way. I actually have a clip of us learning that I can play.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is in a room where we're drowning in eggnog, and me sort of starting to figure out what to do about it.
What?
Lucas, when I was a kid, my aunt got me this stupid fucking bracelet.
Geneva,
it wasn't like
I don't want to
anything
die like this.
I would ever want to wear.
And
she could tell, you know.
We gotta find somewhere else.
And the funny thing was, I was so caught up thinking about how the dumb charm bracelet wasn't my kind of thing.
I can't think about that
my own
right
aunt
now.
clearly had no concept of my
fucking
character,
die, man.
that I didn't even think about how she felt. And do you know how she felt?
I don't know.
She felt bad.
So, Lucas, did you just like act all of that, or were you literally like waterboarding yourself with eggnog?
That was all of the like sound effects, all the Foley and everything were added after the fact by Geneva. I don't think most of the acting was just making my mouth sound different. I've seen people do it much more impressive. Like some people can make it sound like they're straight up underwater, but I just sort of I did a really convincing. I don't want to be too crass, but one time I don't and toot my own horn a little bit. I did a very convincing puke in one episode.
That's the puke in episode 4.
Kind of a hidden talent. I won't demonstrate right now, but yeah, no, it's and I think that part was like, at least on my end, was mostly improvised because it's hard, wanted to get the timing and a little bit natural. It wouldn't sound like she was ignoring me properly if I didn't try to improvise it.
Yeah, that was my whole bit was scripted, and it's actually a true story. But I figured I would drag it out, and I think the note was just like, Lucas is drowning in the background the whole time and trying not to die, because we're in a room that's filling with eggnog and is going to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, kudos on the effects for that. Do you all even like eggnog?
I love eggnog.
I feel very neutral about it, and I think too much will make me sick very easily, and that is part of the episode now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's lines that we have. I'm like, oh my god, I love eggnog, and he just goes, it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's all right. There sure is a lot of it right now.
There's a ton.
Why it's on the floor? Why?
Nope.
Lucas, are you team boiled custard? I guess that's the other question we need to ask.
You know, I like a boiled custard now and again. Funny you should ask. I'm also a big fan of the butter rum. If you're older,
I've not had the butter rum ever.
If you're 21, have a butter rum. I forget what you stir it in, but you stir rum in a hot, almost like a batter, and it becomes a creamy, hot eggnog-like drink that's also alcoholic, like many forms of eggnog are.
Oh my goodness. What is boiled? I got to figure out what boiled custard is and make
Yeah,
it now.
I never made it myself.
It's like the it's essentially like almost it's like eggnog without the egg taste, and it tastes a little bit almost like a pudding, but it's
Yeah, you can eat it with a spoon.
Okay.
yeah. I mean, a
sometimes,
lot of people are like one or the other. I've noticed, like when I have it around here, you know, at the holidays. There's a farm actually outside. Well, you all live where the Mayfield dairy is. I think they do a pretty mean boiled custard. So just go down there and ask for it. Go straight to the dairy.
I'll have to get it while it's still seasonal. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a limited window.
I do remember like a few years ago, there was this back when Colbert was hosting the Colbert Report. He had this whole obsession with eggnog and talked about how he like stockpiled it in his fridge and it was fine until it started giving him food poisoning in March. So it is like I always wonder why these are things we only do at certain periods of time. Like
Yeah, I would be fine with drinking eggnog all from October until March.
Yeah, cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce is good on like with a side of bird meat or anything, lamb, whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also surprised at the number of people who only eat turkey at this time of year. Like, I was at Walmart and I got a turkey for $3, like an entire like. It's like turkey season's over now. Like we just don't need turkeys anymore.
It's like 15, 20 pounds of meat, right?
Right. I mean, cheap meat, good protein. Like I know Geneva, you don't eat meat, but you know, $3 for an entire turkey because like the turkey season is over this week or something like that. It's baffling to me. But you all do a really nice job of sort of playing with these, you know, Christmas traditions, and that seems to be one of the pitfalls and also one of the really great things about, you know, Christmas music, which I'm setting you all up for that on purpose. Or Christmas specials where they have to kind of hit these marks. So like, you know, if you watch an episode of Frasier, like the Christmas episode from whatever in the mid 90s, it's really not all that different from the episode of Full House or the episode of Dennis the Menace. And it's kind of a very difficult thing to pull off. I know I wrote recently in the Pamphleteer about the My Three Sons Thanksgiving episode, which I think is one of the best TV episodes of all time, in the way that it sort of deals with land acknowledgements and, you know, the remnants of Native Americans and things like that. But these are easy genres to phone in.
Oh, yeah.
And you all don't do that. I mean, I feel like, you know, you're doing a really
It means a lot.
Cool cutting edge thing here, but you're also not just like rejecting the traditionalism that comes with the holiday. So can you talk about negotiating that a little bit?
Yeah. Lucas? Sorry, I just read the comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, negotiating what exactly? Like the sort of respecting the source material of the Bible?
I feel like Geneva, your Christmas card is going to carry much less weight after seeing this holiday greeting. You know,
I'm not looking at chat. I missed it.
I never get comments like that for some reason. So anyway, we were talking about negotiating sort of your sensibility, you know, pushing the envelope, your kind of Dada sensibility with the traditionalism of the Christmas special and the traditionalism of the holiday. So how do you negotiate that?
I don't know. I feel like the whole time we were writing it, we were just like trying to have lots of fun, and something I don't like about a lot of art nowadays is that it has to push something on you. And I didn't want to feel like we were pushing anything on anyone. I just wanted people to be able to listen to the show and enjoy it. You know, without feeling like they were being told to think or feel or celebrate a particular way. I think the most we get into like a moral of the story in any case is just like be nice and have fun, which is great.
Those are our core values.
Those are our core values.
The show's core values, certainly. And I don't know. It's not that hard to have fun. Have fun with Christmas. Sorry, I don't know exactly how we manage that.
Yeah.
I think that
it comes kind of naturally.
You just have to love Christmas, for goodness sake, and don't forget to have a good time.
Yeah, I love Christmas.
That's what the show is about. I'd like to be more, but into more detail, but I think it really is just that.
Yeah, I mean, You were setting us up for the Christmas song. Did you want me to?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, let's hear a little bit of this Christmas song to illustrate what I'm talking about here.
Should we do the lead into it?
The lead into it is there, yeah. That's
Okay.
what I got set up here. So this is the lead in to our Christmas song and our Christmas song that we wrote. You know what you need? A little Christmas in your heart.
It's Christmas Eve, you know.
That's right. And everyone knows that what everyone loves most about Christmas is listening to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of Christmas songs.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking, G?
You know it, buddy.
Watch out. Watch out for us too.
You should see us, Bristol. We get crazy.
Ready?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's so nice to be good friends on Christmas time. Everybody's having fun, everybody's feeling fine. It's so nice to be good friends on Christmas time. Everybody's having fun, everybody's feeling fine. And you can do all kinds of special things. Play around, go outside, or watch a cartoon. Inside is warm, outside is cold. If it's winter time, you should bring a thick jacket or coat. Find your best friends, you can have a blast. Doing whatever you wanna. It's Christmas time.
You know, usually on the show we have like clips covering people. It's always interesting to watch people listen to the audio and
To react to our own.
I think we have our TikTok clip for the week just there. So I mean, you know, like I went to this thing in Lebanon the other day called the Dancing Lights of Christmas, which is this huge Christmas light show where you drive around the Wilson County Fairgrounds. And it had to be intentional, but they picked the worst Christmas music in the world. Like the National Lampoon's, I was telling Jay this the other night, but the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation theme was the best. That was like the peak of the evening.
Oh my goodness.
But they were playing like a version of like Metallica and Don't Stop Believin'. That was all Christmas lyrics mashed together.
Weird.
And this weird, like, yeah, I mean, it was, and the lights were like in sync with all of it. And then they started playing Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA for some reason. It was like remix, which make no sense.
Making fun of that. I mean, we knew when we decided to make the Christmas song that we wanted it to be aggressively stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And not really say anything except for that, like, Christmas is nice.
And that it is Christmas.
And that it is Christmas.
And but it's catchy and it's genuine, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Genuine, yeah,
Neither of us had ever written a Christmas song before. So we just studied the history of writing Christmas songs and emulated that to some degree, at least at the very last bit.
As it turns out, there's only one chord that you need to add to a song to make it a Christmas song, and it's like a D with a dropped 5.
Yeah, it's like D minor, flat 5.
Yeah.
And then you're good.
If you do that, and you.
This sounds like Christmas. You only have to do it once.
Are you all gonna be recording a like holiday album for us in the future?
Oh my goodness.
EP maybe.
Lucas did mention that he's always wanted to make a Christmas album, which is why when I brought up like doing a Christmas special, which was in June, I think, he was like, yes. And I was so excited that he was on board for that.
Yeah. It'd be cool to go like all out, do like an Andrew WK thing, just screaming about the 3 wise men.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah, it does sound good.
I love Andrew WK, so yes, I mean
he's pretty cool, man.
Have you seen him in concert?
In what?
You seen him in concert?
I have not. I think it would be I imagine he puts on a great show.
Smashes his face with a brick and just goes for it.
I really liked his recent album. It was kind of a really sad album, but he did like it has the single like Babylon and Heaven. I'm in Heaven. Those are 2 of the craziest songs I've ever heard in my life. Those were like my favorite songs that came out that year. Must have been 2021 maybe. But
I'm thankful for Andrew WK this holiday season for sure.
Oh yeah, the album was God is Partying.
I haven't heard that one yet.
It's
I
really
will-
good. At least the singles are really good. But anyway,
I
Yeah.
had no idea this album came out, but I love me some Andrew WK for sure. So how can our viewers get a hold of this Christmas special?
Easy. You go to. I'm gonna type out a banner for it. You go to youtube.com/@liquidriff. And you can see not only our Christmas special, but all of season 1 of Super Sick Investigations, and our little. We've been doing little shorts, little minute-long comedy videos, and we also started live streaming once a week. We're doing video games and just talking junk and having some laughs. And it's also on Spotify, and I think like a lot of other podcasting platforms. If you go to more typing while talking, supersick.podbean.com. Did I type it right? Yes. You can see where you can stream it.
Yeah.
Which is probably a lot of apps at this point.
make it a little easier. You can listen to it while you're in the car. You don't have to worry about keeping your screen active like a YouTube video, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when do we get season 2?
I don't know. We've come up with like a couple loose ideas for season 2, but we haven't started actively writing it yet. It does take a while to make the show, so I would guess no sooner than the next summer. But yeah.
Expect
Great. Well,
great things.
when
Big
you are
things
ready,
coming soon.
we will have you back on the show to talk about season 2. So Lucas, Geneva,
Boy.
thanks so much for joining us today, and have a Merry Christmas, and I will see you in the new year.
Merry
Merry
Christmas, man. Thank you
Christmas.
so much. Thanks for
course.
having us.
It's a pleasure.
Back-
All right, and we're going to end with our weekly film rundown, and it is a doozy this week. So again, we have a bunch of movies opening on Friday of this week, which is today, and then Monday we have more movies opening. So there are a total of 8 major releases coming out within the next 72 hours. So the movie that I'm most looking forward to seeing this holiday season is Michael Mann's Ferrari. It has Adam Driver as Enzo Ferrari, Shailene Woodley, and Penelope Cruz. And it's a film that, rather than being a traditional biopic, and director Michael Mann, who is amazing. Michael Mann is a director who's made movies like Thief, Heat, Collateral, Black Hat. And created Miami Vice on top of all of that. But he said that he's not interested in making a traditional biopic. He didn't want to have a birth to death Enzo Ferrari type movie. So this is a movie that focuses on the summer of 1957. And that was a critical summer for the Ferrari company. It was almost bankrupt. His marriage was crumbling. One of his children had just died. And it's about the fact that Enzo Ferrari was able to achieve greatness in this short period of time through sheer drive and sheer will. So I'm really looking forward to this movie. I think it's going to be one of my personal favorites this holiday season. A close second, though, is a movie that Jay mentioned during his segment, The Iron Claw. It's directed by Sean Durkin, who made the film Martha Marcy May Marlene with Elizabeth Olsen. Was kind of Elizabeth Olsen's breakout role in 2011. And he also made a criminally underrated movie that I put on a streaming guide recently for the Pamphleteer called The Nest, with Jude Law and Carrie Coon, my personal pick for best film of 2020. The Iron Claw is about the Von Erich wrestling dynasty. It stars Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, and Harris Dickerson, who's been in movies like The Kingsman and Beach Rats. Zac Efron's physical transformation has been making headlines for about a year now in this movie, but it's kind of an interesting film to see how it's going to do box office wise, because of the fact that it's released by A24, who obviously did Dream Scenario and released a lot of cutting edge Oscar bait movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but also, very artsy movies like Under the Skin and Spring Breakers, kind of like the hippest, most cutting edge film distributor out there right now. So it's going to draw that crowd, but it's also going to draw some Zac Efron fans, and it's going to draw some wrestling fans as well. So this might actually be the breakout hit of the holiday season. I guess we'll just have to see. It's definitely on my viewing list for the weekend. So those are my 2 major picks for the holiday season. We also have a movie opening at the Belcourt, which I'm looking forward to because it's based on a novel by one of my favorite contemporary authors, Percival Everett. It's called American Fiction, and it stars Jeffrey Wright as a college-educated novelist who's struggling with his career, and he decides to write a book that makes fun of the Black poverty industry and creates this persona as this sort of out of prison. It's basically a satire of books like Precious or Push by Sapphire. And it's got Tracy Ellis Ross in it as well. And it's a satire about how identity politics has really seeped into everything. If it can pull off what Dream Scenario did, it might be one of the best movies of the year. I've not had a chance to see this one yet, but I'm also very much looking forward to it. This week, and I'll kind of go in order of what's actually out right now, we also have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I actually had a chance to see this movie last night. We're kind of in superhero overload right now. Superhero fatigue is real. And DC's had a string of failures this year. Shazam didn't do as well as they thought it would. The Flash lost tons of money. Blue Beetle is probably my candidate right now for the worst movie of the year. Aquaman is probably the best of the bunch. It's completely phoned in, but at the same time, there's some great moments of humor, and you've got some actors like Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson, who's kind of steals the show in this film, and Nicole Kidman, and also Randall Park, who plays Agent Jimmy Woo in the Ant-Man series and made his own debut movie this year with Shortcomings as a director. Aquaman, it's got some really nice special effects. Story is like every other superhero movie you've seen, but if you're just looking for something that's family friendly to do for a couple of hours, I'd watch this. I'd put it on in the background as I'm doing some work. It's got some nice moments. It's also got some moments that are just kind of eye roll, lazy screenwriting, but it's worth a look. It's got a really horrible Rotten Tomatoes score right now, but I feel like that's a little bit unjustified. So I would give this my cautious recommendation to see. There's also the movie Migration, which I was kind of shocked to learn was written by Mike White, who made School of Rock and is probably most famous now for creating The White Lotus. And it's about a family of ducks whose dad is a little anxious and ends up taking them on a vacation unwittingly. And it turns into the journey of a lifetime. It's got Elizabeth Banks, Camille Nanjiani, Awkwafina all doing voice roles there. This Christmas Day brings us a couple more pieces of adult fare. So we have George Clooney's movie, The Boys in the Boat. Clooney's directing the movie. He's not in it. And it's about the 1936 University of Washington rowing team who competed in the Berlin Olympics and thumbed their nose at Nazism. So that's one of our more kind of adult offerings that is coming out as well this holiday season. So that definitely might be worth your time. A movie that I'm just kind of confused about is the Color Purple musical. The Color Purple, very famous book by the novelist Alice Walker, turned into a multiple Academy Award nominated movie by Steven Spielberg in 1985. Then it went to Broadway, and now it's back as a musical. It's got Taraji P. Henson in it. It has Fantasia Barrino in it. Her, Ciara, a lot of R&B singers that have really made careers for themselves. I'm going to go see it. I don't really know why it needed to be made outside of the IP. It's kind of a strange source material if you've read the book for a movie, but it could be great. I don't think it's going to be like Cats level bad or anything like that. So that's just kind of the way that it works. So those are the movies that are going to be coming out. I will also say the Belcourt has got a great selection of holiday classics that they're continuing this week. As is tradition, the Belcourt's running It's a Wonderful Life all week, but they're also going to be showing Die Hard and Gremlins and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Over the new year, they're going to be showing The Gold Rush. And tonight, which is kind of related, they're doing a screening of The Exorcist 3. So if you've seen the Ryan Murphy, Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix show, there's a couple of kind of in-jokes about The Exorcist 3. It's become a little bit of a meme. It's a great movie in its own right. No pun intended there for the Catholics out there. But it's a movie in which It's a Wonderful Life features prominently. So I think it's kind of cool that the Belcourt is doing this as their midnight movie for tonight. If I didn't have other plans, I'd definitely be checking that out. So another movie that I want to talk about that I'm actually really excited about is the romantic comedy Anyone But You. And this stars Euphoria Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell from Top Gun. I'm really like, I got a total man crush on Glenn Powell. I think he is one of the greatest actors of this generation. He's highly undervalued. I love Top Gun Maverick, but he was my favorite part of Top Gun Maverick. And Sydney Sweeney, too, I think is an actress that doesn't really get the credit that she deserves. So they're in this romantic comedy in which they play college nemesis who fake being together during Sydney Sweeney's sister's wedding in Australia. And obviously, probably they're going to fall in love. But I've seen this trailer before every movie that I've gone to over the past 3 months, and I still laugh out loud every time I watch it. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think this is also going to be a movie that might get a slow start, but really kind of build an audience over the holiday. A lot of the box office prognosticators are saying that they think this is going to be a very weak holiday season because there's no multi-demographic movie like an Avatar or a Spider-Man No Way Home. But I think a lot of these movies that really have been getting the short shift, have been just getting tossed off into streaming, might actually have a moment to shine, because the week between Christmas and New Year's is the biggest movie-going week at the box office. And there's a lot of offerings, as you can see. A lot of them aren't really obvious contenders for blockbusters or big hits, but I think all of them have that potential. So it's going to be a very busy week at the box office over the Christmas break. So that is our weekly film rundown. And that also brings us to the close of the show and the close of Culturally Appropriate for 2023. So thank you for sticking with us over the past 5 months. I know we've got a lot of great plans coming up in 2024. And whatever you do this holiday season, give it some thought. This is me signing off. Have a great one.